Um, it was for this committee, and it basically was, good afternoon. The select board was hoping to get an update from the subcommittee for their 2/28 meeting. A written update is fine unless you or another member would like to attend to speak to it in person, or the whole subcommittee could attend. If you're providing a document, I need to see that by Friday morning, or add that by Friday morning to the packet. Let me know your
So
thoughts.
I'm actually going to the meeting that night.
Oh, okay.
If yeah, I've got two other agenda items on select board for Tuesday, so
Okay.
I'll be there.
You wanna be our
I don't- yeah,
emissary
sure.
for that?
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think we should give them the report yet, just because it's not ready. It's not. Hey, there's Alex. It's not ready. So I think maybe to go there and say, hey, we have the report. We're refining it. We expect to get it out. And
All right, Joe, do you want to reply and CC me and just let him know Jesse Stein is going to be there anyway for a couple other agenda items for select board, and
Yes.
he can
Yeah.
report.
Yeah. I'll reply for us.
All right.
well, good. So now that we have Alex, who's got a label of Jesse Stein.
I'll fix it in a sec.
Yeah, no problem. Why don't we just get into it? Just for housekeeping, Joe just circulated a little earlier today drafts of the minutes from the last meeting on December 9th, which is our last meeting. Pretty short and sweet. I thought it looked fine to me. I don't know if anyone else had a chance to look at them or have any other comments. But if none,
I make a motion, we accept the meeting minutes as written.
I'll second that. So all in favor of approving those minutes? Alex, you're on mute. I think we have to say it verbally, but
Stein, yes.
Aye.
Alex Frisch is an aye. Joe Palmer
Aye.
and Tom Biscoe is an aye. Okay, good. And Joe, just going forward, I understand you've taken on the laboring oar of just doing these minutes for these meetings. Hopefully, we don't have too many left. But
yeah, no, I'll just do it.
Okay.
I'm not that detailed about it because our discussions wouldn't
You're
fit.
a lot better than I would be.
All right,
yeah,
I think we're rocking and rolling. Is this it, Tom?
I don't see it yet. So let me just, before we get into it, so this is the draft I circulated on February 5th. So just to give you guys an overview, this is my, I think when we last left off in December, I just said, look, let's just not schedule anything else until I've been able to get, the text into the document that we talked about, but just hasn't been fleshed out in the document yet. So what I sent out on February 5th was what I sort of considered to be, the end of what we intended, or at least as I understood it, what we intended to be in this report in terms of subject matter with my text. Certainly not intended to be a finished, refined product. There's still, editing to do, and there's still some citations left in the margins and some data that needs updating. But just in terms of the overall substance, organization, touch and feel of the document, I guess that's what I sort of consider to be more or less at what we intend to include in our report, subject to all the editing and refinement as I discussed. So I sort of circulated to you guys with the hope that you guys we could all review it cover to cover and just use the meeting tonight and maybe another meeting to just go over anyone's comments, impressions, edits, anything we want. I sort of view this as the document that we can then start shaping and refining and polishing to as our final rundown to producing a document that we give to our masters. So with that, I guess I'd turn it over to you all to see what the thoughts, impressions, comments, edits are. And I'll just open the forum, see if anyone has any comments.
I thought it summed it up very well.
All right, great. Um, Jesse or Joe, any substantive comments and this is definitely not, I mean, I think we have still some pruning and gardening to do on it. But do you guys have any other sort of big picture organizational or substantive comments?
So it's for the, you can, in the section for affordable, or rather elderly,
Yeah.
it is 4. I did confirm that with Karina.
Oh, so so the comment there, just to go to that particular point, is that Karina had given us, and it's published on the website, how many units are left in the elderly housing 7% cap. And I think she had given us the number 3 based on the calculation as of January 1st, 2021, which is 2 years ago now. So I guess one question I had, and maybe, I don't know, Jesse, if you think it, maybe between now and our next meeting, is that something you might be able to confirm with Karina?
Yeah, I did.
Oh,
One got returned, so it's 4.
That?
I don't know if
there's
you can hear me,
4?
but it's 4.
And has she done a more updated, is there a more updated version?
She just did, yeah.
Oh, she did. Gotcha.
About a couple months ago.
Oh, gotcha. Okay, so that wasn't on the website. Do you think you could just shoot that to me or ask her to shoot that to me?
Yep.
That'll be one less placeholder we can take out of this. Oh, and I was actually, attach that chart as an exhibit to our report, and actually have it in our draft. But again, that was for 1/1/21. So she has a more updated one. I can swap that out in Exhibit B.
Who sets that limit? Is that a state thing?
No, it's in the bylaws. It's in the actual elderly housing bylaw that it can't be.
Yeah, but whose bylaws? Is it the state? Is it the town?
No, the town zoning bylaw. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
I'm just shooting her a text.
Okay, cool.
Right. Can you guys see? I am sharing this. Can you
No,
guys
I
see
can't see it.
No.
Can anyone else see it?
I've got it on my other monitor, but no.
Let me try again. Still nothing?
No.
It's promising that it's there, but it's not.
I wonder if I can share. Hey, let me try from my end. I see buttons that says share screen. I wonder if that will actually allow me to share my screen with you guys. Hang on.
Boy, I'm having weird technology today. This is a really good draft. I'll say that, Mr. Bizicle.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, I was impressed.
Well, we're all contributors to it.
You'd think you were a lawyer the way it's written.
Yeah, I know. That's one of my concerns. There's a
No,
reason
I think it's a good
legally.
thing. I think it's a good thing.
But what can I do? I mean, we're just ordinary Joes here, and I write like that because that's the way I write.
Well, I think it was a good thing.
No, I can't share the screen either. Jesse is telling me that the host won't allow me.
This is report of the
And
capital.
we can just do, I mean,
I've got it in front of me, I think. Yeah.
and again, as I was just reading through this today, I mean, some of the figures, which one of the things is I intend to do after this is go back through like the assessed value of the property. The numbers I have in there are from the assessments, a year ago when we first started this. And I know I just looked at the assessment records today, and those numbers are no longer good. The assessment's $2.3 million now, not 2.1 million. So there are details like that just need to be updated.
You can change that, but the assessment's going to change tomorrow anyway, and we all know that the market value of that property is not going to.
Is it literally? I mean, when you say tomorrow, do you mean literally tomorrow? As the new assessments coming out?
No, I mean just market rate changes every day, and we all know from this coming up to bid before.
Oh, but the
Yeah.
assessed values only come out once a year.
The assessed value is almost irrelevant given that it's not going to represent market value at all.
Yeah, but it's relevant to. I mean, I think it's got some relevance to show what the value of this is, because if the town, decides down the road that they're going to donate this land or do something else with it, it'll be relevant to know what the assessed value is of it.
But I mean, this thing went out to bid 2 years ago, and the best bid we got was 500,000. I mean, I appreciate your point and the point that you're making. I always take it with a grain. I take all these numbers.
Yeah, no, it's not. But for our purposes, I don't think it's so much what somebody would actually pay for this. I think it's a matter of, if a developer is going to do this, and the town donates the land, it'll be maybe a political issue as to whether whether it's worthwhile for the town to donate this land to that developer, or to allocate this town asset, and the value of the town asset will be relevant in that, in that discussion.
It's a starting point to discuss.
Yeah. Anyway, but that's a larger question. I'm just saying, for purposes of drafting, I mean, it's just that's the type of data that was plugged into this a long time ago when we first started this, and now it has gotten a little bit outdated. So I can go back through and update that data.
If it makes you feel better, I'll support you.
Okay. Okay. How about any other thoughts, comments, and impressions on this? I mean, I sort of feel like we're down to the point now where we just want to start refining it and getting it ready.
I liked how you put in apartments or condominiums into adaptive reuse. Even though
that was a great point.
From a feasibility standpoint, it's kind of iffy. I think it's good to have it in this document.
Oh, for adaptive reuse, yeah.
It's a good hedge.
Well,
And but I think as a practical matter, if that bylaw was employed to break up the school building into units, I think they probably would be condos, because that's the only way you could sell the units, is if you convert them to condos.
Well, but I mean, it depends on what grants you want to access and doing it too, because they'll support, even if you break it into condos, they can be rental condos. So.
Oh yeah, if it's rental, then it would be condos. You're right. If it was rental property, it wouldn't be condos.
So Tom, where in the draft do we talk about MBTA community? Oh, here it is.
Page 8.
Yeah, I see it now.
I don't know how I happened to be right on it when you said that, but
I mean, that to me is the real. That's kind of the kit and caboodle, because in my mind, as a planning board member, I feel like the MBTA communities, my own personal opinion on the likelihood of it passing is that it's increasing in likelihood and not decreasing.
Of the MBTA zoning district, you mean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
you mean passing in Southborough?
I do think it more than likely will. I mean,
that's good.
It's not a slam dunk because there's some other communities that are defying it. And Brookline, there was a great article in the Globe today, if you guys have a chance to check it out, about Brookline.
Oh, really?
Yeah, they don't like it. And they actually have to have it for some reason because of the concentration of the tea in Brookline. They have to actually have it done by the end of this year, or else they get penalized, so to speak.
Yeah, I imagine
there's a lot of resistance in Brookline.
They have 2 trolley lines running through there too.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, I would think Brookline, I mean, they already have a lot of multifamily dense housing there.
So a lot of the residents there see it as, this would be overbuilding.
Oh, I
Yeah.
see. Yeah, right.
Yeah,
I'm
I was
sure we're
about to
going to
say.
hear that here too. But one thing that we have that they don't have is the land. And this is where I'm going to hang my hat on this thing, is we have 30 acres potentially that we can use at the Dell EMC site, which that would have not as much, it'd be potentially a lot lower impact to the community.
How do we use
Adverse.
that? Isn't that a little ways away?
What's that?
Isn't that a little far away from the
Tom,
district?
isn't it correct that you only have to have 10 of the acres within the half mile? and the
That's
rest
right.
can be anywhere
That's
in the
right. It's funny.
municipality?
As I've gotten into the details of this. So every town has a sort of different allotted percentage of how many units have to be within a half mile of the actual transit station. And for Southborough, it's 20%. So if it's a 50-acre minimum zoning district, then that means 20% or 10 of the acres have to be within a half mile of the train station, but the other 80% can be elsewhere in the town. So that's a new development that's happened over the course of the comment period to the DHCD guidelines on this. So Joe, just so you know, SHOPC has been talking about, coordinating with the planning board when they start deciding where this zoning district would go, and it can be broken up apparently too. So try to have 10 units. What's that?
MBTA completely caved on some of it. Okay.
Yeah, I think to their credit, they heard comments from a lot of people saying, "Hey, having 50 acres contiguous is a hard thing to do," and like Southborough's a good example. I mean, we'd love to have more dense housing along Route 9 than necessarily down by the train station, because down by the train station is already smaller lots already, and it's already kind of for Southborough where the more affordable houses are. So
Agreed.
It's not really, for Southborough purposes, an ideal place to create more dense.
It has no infrastructure for it.
And yeah, so
and it's divided, and the property all around that site's divided up by 3 towns. I mean, the whole thing, the original mandate was completely ridiculous for us.
Yeah, and I think the DHCD recognized that there were just so many different municipality specific concerns that was going to be too hard to make.
I'd love to put some of our non-used commercial space and transfer it over and make apartments and condos. I'd love to be a business town. We're making money off business, but we're not Westboro.
Yeah, but Madison Place, I mean, I thought that turned out to be a very nice, that was a 40B project, but a lot of units, and it works well. It blends into the surroundings well. And, I think that's a good example of how, multifamily housing can be done along Route 9. And
I cringe when you say that, because that's before my time on the planning board, but that should have been part of the DHCD inventory. And because of a reporting error, administrative error, it didn't get counted.
What?
It's true.
Really? Because those are all apartments, so they should all count. Not that I actually wanted to count.
Completely insane. Long time ago, way before the planning department that you have now. Hey Tom, so at the end you say conclusion, do we need a conclusion? I don't think so. Personally, I think
we just end with the last point.
Yeah.
Okay.
Personally, I think we're good there.
I assume we're just presenting options, not conclusions.
Well, I would say the one conclusion is that the property is developable.
Yes.
I thought that was the original mandate, and that's the conclusion that we have.
Or you could say that.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I didn't imagine a 3-page conclusion. I don't know, whether some salutation, I don't know, something saying, sum up, or developable, but the zoning doesn't really, we don't really have. We need the zoning to be updated to support it. I don't know.
Yeah, well, both the zoning and the grant money. I mean, if you want to align a project completely, you need the neighborhood support, you need your zoning, and you need the money source. So, I mean, and that's before we even talk about the big elephant, which is who's going to be building it and who the stake owners are.
Yeah, but that'll be, yeah.
So there's a point in here, Mr. Frisch, asking for reconfirmation as to whether or not our town housing authority is not staffed and being operated by the city. of
Oh,
Framingham.
yeah.
I was going to bring that up now. I was just starting to raise my hand. I assume we're all aware that we have subcontracted Framingham Housing Authority to run the affordable housing in this town. And I brought up at the last meeting the question as to whether, I mean, they have a lot of construction capabilities themselves. I'm not saying they would build it, but they have a lot of know-how and people who are familiar with doing construction projects. So I breached it with them, but I didn't get into detail. But I think they're in a much better position if we wanted them to take some responsibility than we would have been without them. I mean, they've got a whole department, departments that do that thing. They've got staff, they've got equipment.
So Alex, just, I am kind of like surprised in a way that the properties, the town-owned properties or the housing authority-owned properties are not being managed locally. They're being managed by Framingham. Is that correct?
Here, just one example of how that comes to be. The state only allocates 14 hours a week income for a manager.
So you don't have an on-site manager?
What kind of quality do you get for 14 hours a week income? Where so it's kind of a win-win in my opinion. The Framingham gets some of the cash that would have gone to a manager, and we get a full-time crew. I mean, they got 2 people in the office, sometimes 3 now, a few days a week, and we have all of their resources and their equipment and their know-how. I mean, they'll send a crew over here to fix it if we get out of if the snow or the weather or any number of things create an issue. They've already come and improved the groundskeeping a bit. So again, who do you hire for 14 hours a week at whatever the rate is? I mean, you know, no one's going to take this. It's difficult to get someone to take this job for under $30,000 a year.
So tell me again, Alex, what's the I'm not quite following. What's the 14 hours? So
if you take the hourly rate that they're offering, it comes 14. The state only authorizes us to pay them a manager 14 hours a week. So the way that Lynn dealt with it is she also managed Northborough. And but with the income from Northborough and then income from Southborough, she was able to eke a living out of it. But there isn't really a living wage. That's the bottom line for a manager.
Gotcha. And that's just just so I'm understanding correctly, you're talking about a manager from the Framingham Housing Authority that's now come over and is managing.
Not quite a whole team. The director is now the director over there, and he's assigned what does he call? I could grab his card and tell you. He's assigned a special projects manager to sit here so many hours a week and speak to people. And while he's there, and then they have their staff doing the paperwork for the state, which was difficult given, a small housing authority like this has almost the same paperwork that the Framingham Housing Authority does. And how is 1.5 worker going to, I mean, they've been dealing with it, but it's been tough. So without more, the bottom line is there isn't the salary to really pay impressive people to do that job.
So they're just adding our stock to their portfolio and taking our funding, and hopefully we're going to get the services a better level of service
better
overall.
level of services and more experienced filling out of paperwork to the state.
So
And so what do they do now? Because I understand, and maybe this is another thing I want to ask you about. You know, I highlighted the text I added here based on Colonial Gardens, which is the affordable housing project across from St. Anne's Church on Boston Road. And I understand that and I looked at the website, and I know that's being managed and owned. I think it's owned and managed by the Southborough Housing Authority.
That's correct.
So when you say they've subcontracted Framingham, does that mean that someone from Framingham is coming and taking over the management of Colonial Gardens? Is that the type of thing you're talking about?
Team is.
A team, gotcha. Okay. But they come in and I'm not quite understanding the 14 hours. They're getting paid.
Somehow that's what the state has authorized the manager to be paid.
The manager in other words, the manager from Framingham's coming over here and managing.
Well, it'll be somewhat different now because they're getting a budget from the. I don't quite understand how the manager was broken down from the total budget.
I see.
They get the total budget, and from that they're going to do not only what needs to be done, but lend us their equipment and their manpower and so on and so forth. I mean, they already had 2 men here a week or so ago getting rid of the leaves, and we've got acres of land. And
So is it safe to assume that the select board knows who the contact is? I mean, Mr. Purple should know who the contact is
it's a good
for
question.
the housing authority.
It's a good question, but I will say this. The board of directors, they still have to report to the board of directors. I'm on that, and one other person from SHOPC is, and a few people from town. So they still have to answer to a board of directors, which is the same board of directors that Lynn answered to.
So I don't. What's the likelihood, given the current situation, that the Framingham Housing Authority could effectively manage more properties? It sounds like you're saying they probably could do a good job.
They in fact, they handle a few towns. The person's now the director over and above everything else is really welcomes the opportunity to increase their ability, the projects they can handle. And he's very proactive in wanting to take on more projects.
Well, if it's done right, they should have greater elasticity with funding sources, with multiple funding sources and more resources.
Well, yeah, I mean,
I think it's a wait and see, I guess.
Yeah, they're not just waiting, depending on us. I can go grab his name and business card if you want, but it's.
Do you see so the Framingham Authority coming over, and it's one thing to manage an existing apartment complex and make sure the rents are coming in and make sure the yard's getting raked and the driveways are getting plowed and making sure the
doors and there's kitchens being redone. There are doors.
Yeah, it's another thing to say, hey, go take this property and develop it.
Well, yeah, absolutely. And I can't, and I started to raise that at the last meeting. And then I realized I don't really know what I was asking. So I just basically did in general terms, how interested would they be if there are other projects to help manage around town? And in theory, they like the idea, but I didn't have the details and I didn't think it was my place to go into more details with them on it. But they certainly have the staff to oversee. I'm not saying that we would turn over the entire development to them, but they could certainly lend
manage it once it's done,
management of it and so on and so forth, and maybe even oversee some of the construction. I don't know. If you want to give me specific questions, I can ask them.
No, I just the point of this section that I wrote in the report is that you know, if we walk through and again, a very general, you know, 10,000 feet in the air view of managing the development, you know, a town self-development versus, you know, a private developer development. You know, one thing we're saying is, you know, the developer could do it. The private developers have expertise, and they have, you know, obviously they're much more competent in developing real estate than the town would be. But the developers, you know, need to make a profit, and it's hard for the project to pencil out if the units have to be made affordable. And in contrast, if the town self-develops it, they're not as, you know, they don't want to lose a ton of money, but they don't necessarily need to make an investment return, and they can, you know, they don't need to make the same margins. On the other hand, you know, is a town equipped to do that? And if this case, if the agency that would handle that for 21 Highland would be the Southborough Housing Authority, gee golly whiz, it doesn't seem like they're really staffed to take on a project like that right now. You know, they have one person, and you know, and they're subcontracting their services out to because they can't even manage the properties they already have. They're subcontracting out to the town of Framingham, or the city of Framingham. That certainly doesn't sound like we have an agency that's ready to take on a development.
I wouldn't be too sure one way or the other. When I was surprised when Lynn was asked if she wanted to get involved with some of the similar project that we're describing, and she said, yeah, she did it in Northborough. Well, I don't know what she did and what she didn't do, but these people at least give the appearance of being pretty, you know, they have a construction crew. Now, that's not to say they'll start from scratch and build it, but they're getting quite a bit of money from the state for managing this place. And I can ask specific questions or however we want to handle it. I could even ask them, you know, to attend a meeting, especially where it's YouTube, Zoom rather. But all I can say is they're far more capable than Lynn was. Now, if that's, I'm not saying that we would expect them to take over a project, hire the contractors and build it, but I would say that once it's underway, they could probably oversee it a lot better than Lynn could have.
Yeah, although I don't really think developments work that way. You know, that someone's going to start the project and design it and manage the construction, do the whole thing. They're not, you know, it's really not going to be one person's going to start it and say, well, I don't know what I'm doing now, is have somebody else come in and take over the.
I was thinking overseeing. I wasn't thinking take over, but why don't, it doesn't hurt for me to ask them if they have been involved in building new.
Yeah. No, I'm sure they have in the city of Framingham, because it's, you know, a much bigger town, and they're you know, as you said, they have more resources, more staff. They can do projects. I wouldn't be surprised if they did, and they could do that. I guess I question whether they, as a subcontractor for Southborough, would come into Southborough and do a project, manage a project in Southborough. And it's related to that, even if they were inclined to do that, whether the town of Southborough would be inclined to have a project like this managed by the housing authority of a different town.
More to the point in my mind is, how would it get paid? What would we have to pay them to do it? And that might be a problem.
Yeah. That's one sort of big picture, you know, as we get towards the end of this, that I wish we had fleshed out more. And I guess I guess we've always been saying this. Look, we can always do the general background. We're only 4 lay people doing the best we can to do the research on this, and we've got a lot of information here. And the next stage, when you get, you know, if the town decides to do this project or to do, then they can, the next people who take that over will get into the granular details of what the project will look like, how it'll be funded, what funding sources they use, and things like that. So I've never really thought it's our job in this report to get into all the nitty-gritty mechanics of all that. But as I do go back and read this, I sort of feel like our report's a little bit weak on some of even the big picture details of the mechanics of development. Like, you know, so like we call out the fact that, you know, affordable housing doesn't really make sense in general from an economic standpoint, because, you know, if you have to sell the units or rent the units at affordable rates, the income generated, the sales price generated don't justify the cost to do it. And, you know, so, you know, the question of how these things actually get put together, you know, so there are things like community development organizations and, you know, regional affordable housing developers who, you know, aren't going to do these things at a loss because, you know, otherwise they wouldn't stay in business, but also know how to navigate, you know, all the various public grant programs and funding and sources and things like that. And then also aren't, you know, they're nonprofits, so they're not totally, you know, driven by price. They're driven by mission to create affordable housing, you know, without losing money. I sort of feel like our report's a little bit light on, you know, on that subject matter as to who we've always been saying, well, the town can self-develop or a developer can do it. But I sort of feel like there's gradations in between that we don't quite touch upon as much as, you know, as I read through it, as we're getting to the end here, that's an area that I wish we would have touched on more.
Doesn't it come down to cost?
Yeah, I mean, it always comes down to cost, but it's just a matter of how these things are actually put together. How does, you know, from an economic standpoint, how does an affordable housing project using town property get done in a municipality? You know, how you know, without getting into the granular details, you know, what's the best, you
Not
know,
to be gloomy,
formula
Gert,
for
but
doing
we
that.
tried it in Sudbury, it didn't work financially.
So I just want to throw it out there. It might make sense to share this working draft with the select board. It's really like 95% complete or higher.
I'm not crazy about it. I just don't, you know, I'm not crazy about distributing a working draft to the board. I sort of feel like we should get it done with whatever we're capable of doing and willing to do, and then giving it to them, and then having them come back if they have questions. We can answer questions or do supplements or something like that.
Okay, so my message to the select board is our draft is fairly far along, but we decided as a committee not to share it yet because there's still a few.
Yeah, I mean,
we want to finish up.
Yeah, I mean, that's sort of my thought, is that it's pretty, you know, we've got it all there, we're refining it, but it's not quite done. We expect to have it within, you know, within a few
Okay.
weeks.
Okay.
Yeah, I just don't, I mean, I don't, you know, it's still just rough. I just don't want to circulate a public document to them, you know, particularly where, you know, we're 2 meetings away from putting this in final. I'd rather just put it in final and put a bow on it and send it to them in formal, you know.
If they stop throwing questions at us, we'd never get it done.
So we have 3
Look at it.
attendees. I don't see any hands. Kevin Miller, Marcy Jones, and Sam Stivers are in the audience.
Okay.
Oh, Mr. Stivers. Shall we allow him to talk?
Sure.
Mr. Bissicle?
I'd say so. Hey, Sam.
Hey guys, thank you. Many people don't allow me to talk, so I appreciate it.
We always welcome your comments, Sam.
A couple of
Hey,
things.
well,
Yeah, some of you do anyway, right? A couple of things. One, on the Framingham Housing Authority question, I can't speak for other select board members, but I actually do know about what's going on there. I think that's a good deal for Southborough. They've got a staff between 25 and 30 people there who manage the Framingham business and other things that they take on. I don't know how many other authorities they work with, but there's a guy named Paul Landers, who's the executive director, who is the contact point there. And again, I don't think the select board has discussed that in any detail, but I think that others are aware of that, but I've been following it as well. So I think that's a good deal. And second, to Jesse's earlier point, talking about Madison Place, we did get full credit for the
I thought so.
apartments at Madison Place. The issue there, Jesse, was that we actually could have gotten safe harbor protection had we filed the application in time, which there was a lot of mystery about why we didn't, but we didn't make it. And that effect of that was it would have delayed Park Central for another year or 18 months, but it wouldn't have necessarily sent that off the track. So that was unfortunate, but not something that would have probably changed history dramatically. But we did get credit for all of the
Yeah,
rental
but,
units.
yeah, all the units are since it's rental apartment, all the units count towards the subsidized housing inventory.
Thank you for clarifying. Mr. Stiles.
Exactly. And
Yeah.
and
Yeah, I remember some of
DHCD
those details, Sam. I'm still. No, I was full
I'd
time
be-
how that all went down.
I would be happy to talk offline about that.
Yeah.
But I do know about a number of those details. So, and the other thing is DHCD is still using 2020 census data for those calculations for our subsidized housing percentage. They expect in May the Census Bureau to come out with the final, 2010 data. And they expect May to be the 2020 census data updated. So
Yeah.
we'll get better numbers soon here, we think. So, but we're at 8.6%. So we're still under the 10.
Yeah, that's what I have in here based on the DHCD published amounts. It is based on 2020. I had a note in here to say, hey, do they have more updated? But I think you just answered my question, Sam.
Yep. So, and again, I remain very interested in your report, so I will await its final version with eagerness.
We're getting there.
Sam, what's your thought on MBTA communities and the chances of it?
That's an interesting one. I actually am thinking pretty hard about whether we should actually comply with the requirements there. I think that has some significant impact for Southborough. And I think, again, I'm a big fan of affordable housing, but I think it needs to be done thoughtfully. And again, I'd be happy to talk offline with folks about some of the things I think might happen if we proceed with the MBTA community thing that I think could be really problematic for us. So again, it's hard to predict. I don't know, and I'm still thinking about it, but Middleborough or someplace actually turned them down specifically for what sounded to me like not unreasonable reasons. And I think you got to weigh what grant money we get or would get and what we would lose if we do that. And it's a fairly narrow list right now of not large numbers. So it's hard to predict.
They just didn't file the action plan, right?
Yeah, we're on track now. We've done the things we need to do to stay in the race for the time being, but sometime later this year, it gets serious in terms of whether we do the next steps or not. So again, interesting problem, never easy, hard to predict. And I think, I hope we think about it very carefully.
Just to plant one thought in your mind, Sam, as you're mulling over that subject matter. One of the things that you'll see in this report when we issue it is that there's a disconnect between the developability of 21 Highland. Roughly speaking, developers tell us that they could probably, from a development standpoint, could get 10 to 15 units on there, which would be great for the town if they're affordable units. Some would argue it'd be great for the town, but the zoning is not set up to do any multifamily housing, at least at that site. So,
right.
One of the problems we face not only with this site, but in the town in general, is that there really is no multifamily option under the current zoning bylaws.
Except in the downtown district.
Except in the downtown district.
Yeah.
So that's something actually that's not in our report that we could add is a overlay district just on this site.
That's interesting. Yeah, I agree.
We had talked about an overlay district a few months ago.
Yeah. Well, the MBTA community overlay district would
But what if that,
problem.
like, let's say that didn't pass? And that's still like 10. We would probably, in my view, have a better likelihood in this community of passing a 3.5 acre overlay district than a 50 acre overlay district.
Yep. Specifically aimed at multifamily affordable housing. And we could put it where we wanted it.
I don't know if we run into a problem with spot zoning when we only zone one parcel.
But we the town
Hard-
does that though. from
Yeah,
time
we
to time.
have effectively spot zoning in several places, so not
Yeah.
ideal from a planning standpoint. I don't think it's illegal, is it? You're the
Spot zoning
attorney.
is, yes.
Specifically.
Spot zoning is illegal.
But how do you define it? I guess that's the question. Is there a clear definition or?
Yeah, I mean, it's basically the concept that you're zoning. I mean, really it is, a zoning to create a particular outcome for a particular project on a particular site. That's not a sort of generalized zoning, policy for for the larger, for a larger area.
Well, yeah, hard to know. They're also, by
I
the
mean,
way,
it usually works the other way, Sam. It usually works, somebody wants to do a marijuana dispensary, for lack of a better example, or a strip club on a particular site where it's currently zoned to allow for it, and the town runs and changes the zoning on that particular site so that you can't do,
yeah, more prohibitive than.
it's usually
than,
used defensively
permissive. Yeah.
than offensively from.
One other interesting variable here is that there are some interesting things bubbling with the Dell site at this point. And I think there may be some chance to develop some interesting housing options on the sort of the southern part of that site, which is zoned residentially now. I think there are some developers circling on that one, I hear, and I don't know much about the details, but that again could be an interesting possibility for some housing development.
Would they be doing a 40B project? Are they developers? Because that's really the only,
Currently, probably.
that's all they
friendly
have,
40
and that's the only way we get multifamily housing in the town is 40B.
Yep. A friendly 40B is, I think, the potential model there.
Yeah, that sounds great.
Anyway, don't want to delay you guys, but
No
thanks
problem.
for
No,
the
thanks, Sam. We always
opportunity.
appreciate
So,
your input. It's
good
always
work.
valuable.
Thank you.
Thank you. So just getting back to this, I mean, I had this. So I don't know. Maybe I'd propose that we sort of wrap it up. I mean, maybe. I was hoping we could get more into the weeds on this report on this call, but maybe I'm thinking maybe we adjourn and then maybe set up another call in like a week, 10 days, just to give people a better chance to get into the weeds of this a little bit more. I mean, literally, as you know, I'd ask everybody to just sit down in a comfortable place for half an hour and or 45 minutes, just read it cover to cover and pick up typos, pick up syntax errors, something that doesn't make sense, something's repetitive. Because I put this all together over time. We all had input into it. Now it's time to really start shaping it and refining it. And as you really start to read it all the way through, and you get, for instance, to the section on town self-development. Should we even keep the section in? Is talking about the town self-development and Framingham, Southborough, Framingham's Housing Authority and the Southborough Housing Authority, whether we're equipped to do it. Does that even belong in this thing? Or do we need another blurb or a half section on community housing development? Does that warrant, someone having a conversation with a couple of community housing authorities around, community housing developers around here, just getting a big picture lay of the land on how they do things that we can plug in. Those types of impressions as you read through this as a big picture to get to see if you think this again, because we're coming down the final pike on this, so we're now's the time to throw any last minute things in or take any last minute things out and refine it so we can get this done up to turn into our teachers.
So you want me to ask Framingham Authority?
No, I wouldn't worry about it, Alex. But what you could do, Alex, I left a placeholder here in this on page 16 that I highlighted in yellow in this section on town self-development. So I have some language in there about Colonial Gardens as an example of a project that was actually, I'm saying it here, developed by the Southborough Housing Authority. But I don't have any basis for that other than these sort of conversations that we've had that someone, I think it might have been you, Alex, who said, the Southborough Housing Authority did that,
Well, I wasn't here then. I know they manage it. I don't have the foggiest idea who developed it. I believe the Maloney's donated the land. And it was with the understanding that it would be a resource for people who needed it, who grew up in town. Of course, that's only a small part of what it services now, but
Do you think you might be able to do some legwork on that, Alex, and just kind of ask around and see if you can find out more information about,
sure.
you know, who developed it and how it was developed? And again,
Okay.
don't make any formal presentation to the.
I'll just play dumb and ask questions.
Yeah, I mean, you see, you have contacts in the, you know, the housing authority. Just sort of ask who's got the institutional knowledge of
The Framingham won't know, but I can.
No,
poke
they
it
won't.
in town hall and stuff. With
Yeah,
people
okay,
coming in.
that'd be useful. So does that sound like a plan for this big picture, you guys? I mean, if we reconvene in a week, 10 days, and just ask everybody to really take a really hard read, comprehensive read of this between now and then, so that, you know, our next meeting, we'll really get into the nitty gritty details of this and really work on, you know, you guys come in and say, God, that section you wrote in this section, Tom, that just doesn't make sense in the overall thing. I think we should get rid of it, or maybe we should enhance it with this, or simply there's a typo on page 3. You know, you said affordable 6 times, and we should only say affordable 3, you know, whatever it is.
Yeah, hopefully I can share my screen next time. That'd be pretty sweet. Or at least figure out a way to let you do it. Or somebody
Yeah.
else.
It doesn't make any sense. Should we do a meeting in person with the document so we can just all go through it together? And or would you rather? I'm agnostic about it, but that's another.
For what it's worth, it occurred to me this evening. For what it's worth, you know, we could always, if the town hall isn't accessible, we can always use the community building here on Colonial Gardens, if we need a place to all get together. So it's an option.
Okay. Why don't we choose a date, and then we can figure out logistics of whether we just do it by Zoom or do we want to try to get together. But you know what I
I
imagine
don't know
is,
how it works, Tom, with meetings. If public meetings are supposed to be hybrid or something like that, allow for public participation.
well, that yeah, no, I hear you. Right. I don't think we can meet off-site. It's an official public meeting of a public board, so we do have to make it a public place where the public has access to.
Well, yeah, but I also mean, are we subject to requirement of it being on Zoom also? Since we're still,
I don't know. Is it do other? I don't know. SHOPC just met in person a couple weeks ago.
wasn't that on Zoom also though at the same time?
Oh, does
Yeah.
it have to be?
Yes,
Things
it
have
was.
to be. I don't even know.
Hey, guys,
Yeah.
I don't think you're required to be on Zoom now if you have an in-person meeting in a public place. It is good to have that accessible. But for example, in the old days, you know, select board meetings were in the townhouse hearing room, and it was on Southborough Access Media, but there was not opportunity to interact through that. That was simply a recorded thing. So I think the fundamental issue is you've got to be in a place that the public can attend, and you don't necessarily have to record it or have it Zoom accessible in theory, but obviously better to do that if you can.
Thanks.
Jesse, would you mind sort of just confirming that? And you know, again, maybe for tonight we'll just pick a date, and then between now and then we can decide over email as to whether we make it in person or just keep it Zoom. But I do imagine us literally going through this page by page and saying, hey, there's a comma missing there, the apostrophe missing there, that sentence sucks, take it out, or, you know, we're missing this concept here that we should really add.
Yeah, I'll call Haggerty.
Okay, that sounds great.
Oh, hey, Karina just texted me.
Yeah.
She says that it is updated.
Oh, cool. Could you ask her just to shoot me a copy of it, or is it online? Because the last time I checked online a couple
It's
weeks
on the planning board website.
Oh, perfect. Okay. Tell her that's
Left side about halfway down. The calc
Okay.
is updated and it is 4 units.
Awesome. All right, good. I'll go. I know I got what I now have an exhibit B of our document I got from the website. I don't know, I want to say a month ago. So I can go to the same spot and pull down the more updated one.
So should I move to adjourn?
Yeah, let's pick a date first, though, if we could. I know this is not the first time we're getting comments from different people saying, where the hell is this report? So I feel like we should really push to get it done. I'm gonna be out of town
Next week is a little tough for me.
Yeah, it's tough for me too. But the following week, we have a SHOPC meeting. Do we have a SHOPC meeting on the 8th?
We have a SHOPC meeting on Monday also at 9:30 a.m. I don't know if we're gonna meet again on the 8th,
Right.
but
maybe
we're
can do the
meeting
8th.
on Monday, and then we have a joint meeting with the select board on the 28th of this. So we have 2 more SHOPC meetings this month.
Yeah, I don't know why I have this in here. I think it's something that I put in here ages ago, or somebody sent us a global SHOPC schedule for the year. So yeah, how about the 8th, March 8th? Does that work for everybody to do a meeting, or the 9th?
I can do
The 9th would be better for
meeting
me.
on the 9th.
Okay. Why don't we say 7 o'clock on the 9th, and then between now and then, we'll decide whether we want to do it in person or do it by Zoom.
Does that work for you guys?
Mhm. Tom, if we go through your draft before then, do you want us to send you what we would propose ahead of time? Or would you rather just wait for the meeting?
I don't know. What do you guys think? I mean, maybe that might make sense. So if you guys send me comments as go along, particularly like typos and stuff like that, I can just go ahead and put them in. And then maybe a few days before that meeting, it's not going to change dramatically. So a few days before that meeting, I can send you my latest and greatest with your input, but that won't change. If we still want to review the draft I have in substance, the substance probably won't change much between now and then. So you'll still be in a decent position. You'll have read this in substance before a few days before the meeting. So we'll still be in a good position to talk about it. The big picture is.
Just to clarify for my pea brain, we're talking Thursday, the 9th at 7 o'clock, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Does that make sense to you guys?
Yep.
Okay. All right. Sounds good. So next meeting will be March 9th at 7 o'clock p.m. And so, yeah, why don't we leave it that way, Joe, to your question. If you guys have comments along the way you just want to shoot to me, particularly like type comments, I'll just start getting this thing cleaned up in advance of our next meeting and shoot your draft. But please do, if you can, read us substantively from cover to cover, and for the next meeting, just be prepared to have a real down and dirty conversation about these things as we go along. So we can really, with the idea that by the next meeting, we'll be ready to put this in final, if that makes sense.
Deal.
Okay, cool. All right. Make a meeting to
Motion to adjourn.
Second. All
Aye.
in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Stein, aye.
Okay, Biscoe, aye. All right, thanks, guys.
Have a good one. Thanks, Tom.